Ok. Ok. On commence à être setup. Full screen, voilà. J'ai un recorder à setup aussi. On s'est recordé. SDX. Boom! Et ça record. Record dans le recorder. Bon, le recorder il record, le live stream il record. Et moi, je record. Ok, j'espère juste que ça va pas tout tomber. Et c'est parti! So, Discipline Equals Freedom, Field Manual MK1 Mod 1 Expanded Edition by Joko Willink. And we are now at page 206. Alright, dealing with injuries and illness. You are going to get injured. You are going to get sick. Regardless of how careful you are in your training, how clean you eat, and how healthy you live, you are still human. Injuries and illness will occur. My theory for overcoming injuries and illness is simple. Do what you can. If you are sick or injured, don't use that as an excuse to skip workouts or stay in bed all day. Do what you can. Hurt your knee. Work your upper body. Work the good leg. Hurt your shoulder? Time to work on one-armed pull-ups and push-ups. Focus on your core and legs until your shoulder heals up. Tendinitis from using the grip too much. Sounds like it is time to focus on sprinting and jumping plyometrics. Got a little cold, flu? Same thing. Do what you can. Maybe it is just going for a walk, a couple set of sit-ups and push-ups, but don't just stay in bed all day. Now, sometimes you get plain knocked out by illness or a virus. If it is that bad and your body absolutely needs rest, good. Listen to your body and take the rest. Also, don't bring your disease to the gym to spread around. Work out at home. Same thing with injuries. Some injuries prevent you from doing the physical things you like to do. Good. Do what you can. Work on some skills that you can do. Pick up a guitar. Write a book. Draw. Paint. Compose a song. Blog. Create. Learn. Do something. Take advantage of physical injuries and sickness by doing something you don't normally have time for. And in other words, get after it. The workouts. Warming up. Before you start your workouts, you need to get warm. I like my warm-up to include exercises or exercises with light weight slowly and through the entire range of motion. Here is a nice little warm-up. Hang on the pull-up bar for 10 to 15 seconds. Get in the push-up position and hold it for 10 to 15 seconds. Drop your hips on the ground and stretch your abs. Lift your hips to the sky and stretch your hamstring and your back. Stand up. Do a slow squat and sit at the bottom for 10 to 15 seconds. Do a burpee. Do a few jumping jacks. Now go back to the bar and do one pull-up. Drop down and do a push-up. Then do a slow dive bomber push-up. Stand up and do a slow, full range of motion squat. Follow that up with burpee, then 5 jumping jacks. Now repeat the cycle again, doing 2 repetitions of each exercise and then jumping jacks. Then do the cycle with 3 repetitions of each exercise and 15 jumping jacks. Continue increasing repetitions until you get to 5 of each exercise and 25 jumping jacks. This is a solid warm-up. The blood is flowing. If your workout for the day is focused on a specific movement, do that movement with some light weights. For instance, if you are doing deadlifts, do some deadlifts with light weight. If you are doing clean and jerk, do some clean and jerk with a PVC pipe or just the bar. If you are doing squats, do some slow, deep control squats with a very light weight, perfect form, and through the complete range of motion. These will not only get your body warm, but will also strengthen your muscle memory of the movements. Once you are warm, loose, and focused, you can start the workout. Warning: don't lift weights that are too heavy for you or do movement without proper technique, or you will get injured. Beginner Series 1. Pull. Primary work: 8 sets of max pull-ups. Guts: 2 minutes of sit-ups. Metcon: run 400 meters 2 times. Directions: do as many pull-ups as you can in 8 sets. Allow yourself 2 to 3 minutes rest between each set. If you can do dead hang pull-ups, do as many as you can each set, and then add 3 to 5 keeping pull-ups to the end of each set without dropping off the bar. If you drop off the bar at the end of your dead hang pull-ups, jump back up onto the bar immediately for 3 to 5 keeping pull-ups and then commence the 2 to 3 minute rest. If you can't do any pull-ups at all, then use the ground or a stable box on the ground to jump up and get your chin over the bar. Once your chin is over the bar, hold yourself there as long as you can. This is called a negative repetition. Push. Primary work: 8 sets of max push-ups. Gut: 2 minutes of leg raise, 10 to 45 degrees. Metcon: max burpees in 2 minutes. Directions: do as many push-ups as you can in 8 sets. Allow yourself 2 to 3 minutes rest between each set. Vary the width of your hands, anywhere from 6 inches closer than shoulder width to 6 inches farther apart than shoulder width. If you can't do any push-ups at all, try doing them from your knees instead of toes. If even that is difficult, try leaning into a wall and see what you can do there. Lift. Primary work: 8 handstand holds. Gut: 2 minutes of V-ups. Metcon: run 400 meters 2 times, max effort. Directions: hold the handstand position 8 times. Do not go all the way to muscle failure, but to muscle fatigue. Count how many seconds you hold the position. Allow yourself 2 to 3 minutes rest between each set. Use a wall to balance yourself during the handstands. Try not to rely upon it too much. If you cannot do a handstand at all, get in the push-up position with your feet touching a wall. Walk your feet up the wall and walk your hand closer to the wall. See how close you can get to vertical. Walk your feet and hands back down. Repeat that 8 times. Squat. Primary work: 50 forward lunges. Gut: 1 minute of crunches, 1 minute of reverse crunches. Metcon: max burpees in 2 minutes. Direction: perform 50 forward lunges for each leg, alternating legs with each repetition. Do the lunges in a steady, controlled manner. Your knee should brush the ground on each repetition. Time yourself for your records, but the goal is not speed. The goal is controlled lunges at a steady pace. If you reach muscle fatigue, take 2 to 3 minute break and then continue. Repeat until you have done the 50 lunges. Whew. So that's it for Discipline Equals Freedom. Let's start on Elber Hubbard. So you all have your workout for the day. If you want to do it, it's there. You'll be able to re-listen to it in the background when we'll be done the stream. It seems like a good workout. I'm gonna try to do it. Maybe not today because it's raining. Well, actually, yes. maybe today I'm gonna find a way to exercise at least a little bit and find a way to at least try what he's saying, so I have a better idea what it looks like when I'm actually to do it. Let's jump on Elbert Hubbard because that's the meat. The fucking meat. So page 91. His thoughts on religion. Time is the great avenger as well as educator. Only the education is usually deferred until it no longer avails in this incarnation, and is valuable only for advice. And nobody wants advice. Deathbed repentance may be legal tender for salvation in another world. But for this they are below par, and regeneration that is postponed until the man has no further capacity to sin is little better. For sin is only perverted power, and the man without capacity to sin neither has ability to do good. Isn't that so? His soul is a dead sea that supports neither amoeba nor fish, neither noxious bacilli nor useful life. Happy is the man who conserves his God-given power until wisdom and not passion shall direct it. So, the younger in life a man makes the resolve to turn and live, the better for that man and the better for the world. Anything is better than the dead sea of neutral nothingness, wherein a man merely avoids sin by doing nothing and being nothing. The stirring of the imagination by sorrow for sin sometimes causes the soul to wing a far-reaching upward flight. Asceticism is often only a form of sensuality. The man finds satisfaction in overcoming the flesh, and wherever you find asceticism, you find potential passion, a smoldering volcano held in check by a devotion to duty, and the gratification is oft found in fidelity. Those who fix goals here and now are hotly intent on showing that God will fix goals hereafter. Thus, we see how man is continually creating God in his own image. His idea of God's justice is always built on his own, and as usually our deities are more or less inherited heirlooms of the past. We see that it is not at all strange that men should be better than their religion. They drag their dead creeds behind them like stagecoach. They drag their dead creeds behind them like a stagecoach, with preachers and priests on top, kings and nobles inside, and coffins full of past sin in the boot. A man is always better than his creed, unless he makes his creed new every day. These hand-me-down religions, serfdom fit, and professional theology, it seems to me, is mostly a dealing in old clo'. Thy future life, thy fate is it, indeed, whilst to makest that thy chief question. Thy life to me and to thyself and to thy God is worthless. What is incredible to thee, thou shalt not, at thy soul's peril, pretend to believe. Else whither, for a refuge, away, go to perdition if thou wilt, but not with a lie in thy mouth. By the eternal Maker, no. This instinct that makes men long to live again in the lives of their children, is it reaching out for immortality? Maybe I am all wrong about it, yet I cannot help believing that the spirit of man will live again somewhere in a better world than ours. We are making head. We have ceased to believe that paganism is bad. All the men and women who have ever lived and loved and hoped and died were God's children, and we are no more. With the nations dead and turned to dust, we reach out through the darkness of forgotten days and touch friendly hands. Some of these people that existed 2, 3, or 4,000 years ago did things so marvelously grand and great that in the presence of the broken fragments of their work we stand silent. Oh, heralded and abashed, we realize, too, that long before the nations lived that have left a meager and scattered history hewn in stone, lived still other men, possibly greater far than we, and no sign or signal comes to us from those whose history, like ours, is writ in water. Yet we are one with them all. The same power that brought them upon this stage of time brought us, as we were called into existence without our consent. So are we being sent out of it, day by day, against our will. The destiny of all who live or have lived is one, and no taunt of paganism, heathenism, or infidelity escapes our lips. With love and sympathy, we salute the eternity that lies behind, realizing that we ourselves are the oldest people that have tasted existence. The newest nation lingers away behind Assyria and Egypt, back to the Mayas, lost in continents, sunken in shoreless seas that hold their secrets inviolate. Yes, we are brothers to all that have trod the earth, brothers and heirs to dust and shade, mayhap to immortality. A religion grown great and rich and powerful becomes sloth and swag, its piety being performed per funk, and then ceases to be a religion at all. It is merely an institution. Religions multiply by the budding process. Every new denomination is an offshoot from a parent stem. A new religion is a contradiction in terms. There is only one religion in the world. A brand new religion would wither and die as soon as the sun came out. Christian Science, for instance, appropriated two great things from the parent stock, the word Christian and the Oxford binding, which made Science and Health look just like the Bible. One could carry it on the street as he went to church without fear of accusation that he was on the way to circulating library. It fulfilled the psychological requirements. No man ever lifted up his voice or pen in a criticism against love, truth, compassion, service, sympathy, and tenderness. And if he had, do you think that love, truth, compassion, service, sympathy, tenderness would feel it necessary to go after him with stocks, chains, thumbscrews, and torches? There is one thing worse than to be deceived by man, and that is to distrust them. Little minds have found endless food for argument and disputation right here. To leave the question to nature and let actions adjust themselves, they will never do. They want direct orders covering all the exigencies of life. To meet this demand, the Torah of the Jews was devised, telling how to kill chickens, how to remove the feathers, how to pass a stranger in an alley, how to cook, eat, pray, sleep, sing, and cut one's hair. Sufficient unto the day is the knowledge thereof. What is best today is best for the future. We must realize that life is a voyage, and we are sailing under sealed orders. We open our orders every morning, and this allows us to change our course as we get new light. I am not sure what the unpardonable sin is, but I believe it is a disposition to evade the payment of small bills. Labor is the only prayer that is ever answered. There are those who assume that men who do not go to church play cards. Those who play cards chew tobacco. Those who chew tobacco drink whiskey. Those who drink whiskey beat their wives. Therefore, all men should go to church. Creeds never can be changed. They simply become obsolete and are forgotten. They turn to dust and are blown away on the free winds of heaven. Dean Stanley has said that all the gods of ancient mythology were once men, and he traces for us the evolution of a man into a hero, the hero into a demigod, and the demigod into a divinity. By a slow process, the natural man is divested of all our common faults and frailties. He is clothed with superhuman attributes and declared a being separate and apart, and is lost to us in the clouds. If men could only know each other, they would never idealize or hate. To discard religion would be like repudiating our parents because we did not like their manners and clothes. The religious impulse is the art impulse, and both are manifestation of love, and love is the basis of our sense of sublimity. Anyway, it is hardly good manners to approach a saint closely and examine his halo to see whether it be genuine or not. Halos are much more beautiful when seen through the soft, mellow light of distance. The bachelor, physician, and the unmarried priests have an influence among gentle womankind, young or old, married or single, that the Benedict can never hope for. Why this is so might be difficult to explain. But discerning men know the fact. In truth, when a priest marries, he should at once take a new charge. For if he remains with his old flock, a goodly number of his lady parishioners in ages varying from 17 to 70 will with fierce indignation rend his reputation. 7 years in college emasculates the man. His very helplessness then makes him clutch the church with a death grip. He is a sailor who cannot swim, and these advocates, incapacitated by miscalled seminaries for all useful endeavor, become defenders of the faith and prosecutors of all and each and any who fix their hearts on such simple and godlike things as friendship and equality. Indeed, many of these advocates abjure the relationship of the sexes, tolerating woman only as a necessity, and as for themselves personally eschew her, or say they do. It has happened more than once that men of the highest spirituality have had small respect for religion. As it is popularly manifested, the machinery of religion and religion itself are things that are often widely separated. Orthodoxy is very tolerant. It forgives everything but truth. Doctors and priests attend us at both ends of the route. We cannot be born, neither can we die, without consulting the tax collector and interviewing those who look after us for consideration. Great preachers have often been great sinners, and the sermons that have moved men most are often a direct recoil from sin on the part of the preacher. When a man talks much about a virtue, be sure that he is clutching for it. Temperance fanatics are men with a taste for strong drink, trying hard to keep sober. The faults and frailties of man and woman caught in the swirl of circumstances are not without excuse. but the cold plotting to punish them and the desire to thrive by their faults are hideous. We have recently heard of the Boston lady who died and went to heaven, and on being questioned by an archangel as to how she liked it, replied languidly, "Very, very beautiful it all is," and then sighed and added, "But it is not Boston." Sensuality and asceticism at the last are one. Men who are strong in their own natures are very apt to smile at the good folk who chase the genealogical aniseed trail. It is a harmless diversion with no game at the end of the route. The fruit, much loved by the sun, rots first. The early monasteries were mendicant institutions, and for mendicancy to grow rich is an anomaly that carries a penalty. A successful beggar is apt to be haughty, arrogant, dictatorial. From a humble request for alms to a demand for your purse is but a step. In either case, the man wants something that is not his. There are three ways to get it: earn it, beg it, seize it. The first method is absurd. To dig, I am ashamed. The second, easy. The last is best of all, provided objection is not too strenuous. Beggars are horseback, or knight of the road. That which comes easy goes easy. And so, it is the most natural thing in the world for a monk to become a connoisseur of wines, an expert gourmet, a sensualist who plays the limit. The monastic impulse begins in the beautiful desire for solitude, to be alone with God. And here it runs its gamut, dips deep into license and wallows in folly. The austere monk leaves woman out. The other kind enslaves her. Both are wrong, for man can never advance and leave woman behind. God never intended that man, made in his image, should be either a beast or fool. The communal thought is a form of monasticism. It is a getting away from the world. Monasticism does not necessarily imply celibacy, but as unrequited or misplaced love is usually the precursor of the monastic impulse. Celibacy or some strange idea on the sex problem usually is in evidence. Very seldom, indeed, has a monk ever gone away and remained. He comes back to the world, occasionally, to beg or sell things, and to do good. So the monks occasionally became rich, and when they grew rich, they often became arrogant, dictatorial, selfish, gluttonous, and licentious. They undertook to manage the government which they had before in their poverty renounced. They hired servants to wait upon them. The lust of power and the lust of the flesh and the pride of the heart all became manifest. However, there are always a few men, pure of heart and earnest in purpose, who sought to stem the evil tendencies. And so the history of monasticism and the history of the Church is the record of a struggle against idleness and corruption. To shave a man's head, give him a new name, and clothe him in strange garments, does not change his nature. Monks grown rich and powerful will become idle, and the vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience are then mere jokes and jests. Good work and religion are one. So first, man is in bondage to his fear, and this bondage he exchanges for bondage to a priest. First, he fears the unknown. Second, he fears the priest who has power with the unknown. I am in receipt of a very interesting letter from the Reverend A. B. Taylor, Lakeside, New York, in which he says that he reads the Fra with much pleasure and profit, and often receives valuable help therefrom in compiling his sermons. Dr. Taylor is an Orthodox Methodist, and the fact that I am able to express for him, in degree, many of the things he holds as truth is one of the encouraging signs of the times. It is frank, friendly, and beautiful in Dr. Taylor to write me his acknowledgments. But after writing the letter, he adds a postscript. I might say that I have a suspicion he wrote the beautiful letter in order to add the postscript, but I will not. Here is the P.S. One thing I do not like, and cannot comprehend, is why you so wrongfully advocate the taxing of church property. Then he encloses a column, clipping from the Christian Work and Evangelist, wherein the reasons for exemption of church property from taxation are fully set forth. Very seldom does one get the entire argument at first hand, but here it all is, skillfully presented. I give it in its entirety. The worst enemy New York has, or any city has, is the perennial critic who would tax the churches. Some interesting correspondence has recently been going on in one of the New York papers over this matter. Someone by the name of Hubbard discovered that there were several $1 million worth of property in churches which was untaxed. The critic supported his argument by statement that the churches are not direct public servants, as are schools and hospitals, that they exist to teach certain doctrines of their own, differing amongst themselves, and which have no direct relation to the public good. Some of the doctrines, indeed, being pernicious, according to this critic. The short-sightedness of all this is apparent to the most superficial mind. The policy of taxing the churches would be almost suicidal to any town or city. The churches save New York 50 times what the city loses in taxes from them. Here are a few facts which when perceived, stop all such talk at once. The church is the greatest police force in the community. The Roman Catholic Church alone, we mention that church because it practices the negative doctrine of restraint more than do the Protestant churches. Restrains hundreds of thousands of men and women from petty crimes that would cost New York more than all her courts and police and jails and prison have cost her for years. Take the churches out of New York for 10 years and it would be an unsafe city to live in, and the expense of administering its criminal courts and prisons would bankrupt it. As a matter of fact, the teaching of any particular theological doctrine is the smallest part of any work the churches do. Go into any church in New York, and you will find that fully 3/4 of all the efforts are being directly expended in making good citizens. In Sunday school, the children are being taught honesty, purity, brotherhood, ambition, and the unselfish life. Fully 2/3 of the sermons of the average preacher are direct inspirations to the moral life or instructions in ethics. We venture to say that had our friend collected 50 of the sermons in New York last Sunday, he would have found 49 which dealt with practical religious life to one on the doctrine, say, of the future life. Of course, there are millions of people who have found in their experience that the peculiar doctrines, as our friend called them, produce the highest type of citizenship. As a matter of fact, the main effort of the churches of New York are put on producing honest and altruistic men. Heaven only knows what would become of the city if its 1,400 churches were crippled by great taxes. It is bad enough now. The police service the churches render New York saves the city millions every year. The service of furnishing her with honest and unselfish men cannot be put in numbers. There are none large enough. It will please be noticed that the editor of Christian Work and Evangelist starts his article by informing us who the worst enemy of New York or any city actually is. This worst enemy, according to my Christian colleague, is the critic who would tax the churches. Thus, before he attempts to reply to the critic, he denounces the critic as not only an enemy of the state, but its worst enemy. Grafters, thieves, dealers in dope, procurers, sweatshop fiends, murderers, all take second place. The worst enemy of a city, any city, is the man who advocates the taxation of church property. The editor himself is a Christian, a church member, and a clergyman. Does he stand as a sample of the head, hand, and heart of modern church member? I think so. He is a man of education, of position, honored and respected in his denomination, and he tells us that people who disagree with him in a matter of finance are not only the enemies of the state, but its worst enemies of the state. But its worst enemies. A traitor to God is a traitor to his country. Thus did religious fanaticism once link the heretic and the traitor as one. To disagree with the prevailing religion was to be regarded as the foe of society. How hard the tyrants die. Yet many clergymen believe that it would be better to put church property on an absolute parity with all other property. In fact, many churches now voluntarily pay taxes. The great and influential congregation presided over by Rabbi Leonard Levy of Pittsburgh requested the assessor to tax their synagogue at its cost valuation of $300,000. In Toronto is a Baptist church, the Jarvis Street Baptist Church, I believe, that has paid taxes on its property for more than 20 years. Because the congregation voting on the question decided that an evasion of taxes on the part of a church because it did good was really no better than the exemption of an individual for the same reason. The enemy of the state, forsooth, is the man who asks someone to pay a few paltry dollars for police and fire protection. And naturally, one might say the enemy of the state is the man who refuses to pay his quota of expense for the maintenance of the government machinery. The editor of the Christian Work and Evangelist is a clergyman. He is paid by the religious denomination he serves. This denomination has large holdings of real estate, upon which it pays no taxes. If it paid taxes, it would not have so much money to pay clergymen. Therefore, one of its leading clergymen, acting as spokesman for the rest, defines for us the worst enemy of New York, or any city. Thus we get the quality of logic that rules in our churches. It would be laughable were it not pitiable in its weakness. The church isn't dead. It can still call vile names. How nimbly it yet flings the theological stinkpot. The fires of the auto da fe are not extinguished. They are only banked in the editorial office of the Christian Work and Evangelist. The worst enemy of New York or any city. It is the old cry of, away with him! It is the cry of entrenched tyranny. That he who disagree with you in religious matters is the worst enemy of the state. Socrates spoke disrespectfully of the gods, and for this they brewed for him the hemlock. The crime of Jesus was that he undermine the state. Savonarola, Bruno, Latimer, Wycliffe, enemies of society, all. The editor of the Christian Work and Evangelist thinks that the state and religion are one, and he is right, for just as long as the state grants immunity from taxation to church property, the divorce is not complete. We haven't yet caught up with Thomas Jefferson. Well, you know what the state in the past has done to those who are considered its enemies? Yes, that is just what the meek and lowly editor of the Christian Work and Evangelist would do to you if he had the power. Carefully read, analyzed, and digested, we find that the sole excuses churches have for not paying taxes are: first, the churches form a police system which prevents certain people from committing crimes. Second, the churches supply us a great number of honest and unselfish citizens who otherwise would be rogues. For these two things, they claim a cash reward for the community. They claim a cash reward from the community. My answer is that both propositions are assumptions, quite gratuitous, but that, even if they were true, it would not justify the state in remitting their quota of taxes. I have had a large and varied experience with clergymen and church members, and that they are better morally and stand higher intellectually are propositions which they admit, but which no one besides themselves puts forward. The names of clergymen, Sunday school teachers, and pious deacons who go wrong would fill a 5-foot shelf of books. In fact, it is an axiom that the baker's colony in every penitentiary is made up mostly of church members. When the University of Copenhagen says that church members are better citizens than non-church members, I may believe it. Until then, the verdict must be not proved. And especially so in view of the fact that when Christianity was absolutely supreme, the headsmen worked overtime, and crime, grime, blood, poverty, disease, and woe were the rule, not the exception. The doctrine that some folks are so much better than others that they deserve eternal bliss is the most selfish idea ever put forth by mortal man. Folks would think they are better than others, usually aren't. That the idea of endless joy for believers and endless hell for doubters is not being preached now so much as it was a few years ago is nothing to the credit of church members. All separations of society into sacred and secular, good and bad, saved and lost, learned and illiterate, rich and poor, are illusions which mark certain period in the evolution of society. The offer of endless life and the threat of endless hell are frightful rudimentary errors of the savage mind, born of fear and frenzy, and then perpetuated as a police system by a divine collection agency. For not only does a religion of fear keep people good, but it also makes them pay for being kept good. The offer of immunity from the penalties of sin through belief in the blood of Jesus is merely the immunity that human sacrifice once provided. Slightly refined and modified, the belief in a blood sacrifice has taken place of the sacrifice itself. The Orthodox Christian Church still teaches immunity from penalties and the acceptance of its creed. From exemption from the natural penalty of a misdeed to exemption from taxation is but a step. The man who can accept the one takes kindly to the other. Jesus died and paid it all, yes, all the debt I owe, saved by the blood of the Lamb. That is, throw it off on someone else. Who cares? Anyway, to go scot-free. And this evasion of a penalty for wrong committed is called the glad tidings of great joy. To escape the payment of taxes is a variation of the same idea. Many of these saved people do not pay their debts until compelled to. If they work for you, they loaf and visit on company time. They cheat you in 100 ways, and often spend as much time trying to evade the responsibility of shouldering the burden as, rightly used, would have carried the message to Garcia. The entire Christian doctrine of rewards and punishments, of a vicarious atonement, and the substitution of a pure and holy man for the culprit, is a vicious and misleading philosophy. That fear, in some instances, has deterred man from crime, there is no doubt. But the error of religion is a police system lies in the fact that it makes superstition perpetual. Untruth that good may follow is not a nice philosophy. It will be noted that the learned editor of the Christian Work and Evangelist pleads as a reason why churches should not pay taxes the assertion that 3/4 of all sermons now preached deal with present-day problems, and the effort is not merely to save souls, but to make better citizens. This is doubtless true. The church is saving herself from dissolution by becoming secularized. Gradually, the world is being educated into the belief that one world at a time is enough. Also, a vast number of men and women see the fact that immunity and exemption are not desirable, that nothing can ever be given away, and that something for nothing is very dear. To make a man exempt is to take from him just so much manhood. And to make a church exempt is to weaken the fabric and place the institution on a mendicant basis. To accept salvation for yourself with the consciousness that there is still one soul in hell would turn your paradise into purgatory, if your soul were worth a damn. One man is no man, said Aristotle 400 years before Christ. We are all parts of particles of each other. We are all parts and particles of each other. This matter of exemption from taxations and certain edifices and certain men, transportation at half rates, and the 10% discount to clergymen and teachers, all hinges on the lack of ethical monistic concept. It assumes that certain work is sacred and other work secular, that certain places are holy and other profane. My esteemed colleague, the editor of the Christian Work and Evangelist, admits that this world is no longer, but a desert, drear heaven is my home. He admits that we are here, and that this is our home now, at least. When he goes a step further and admits that this is God's world, not the devil's, that every man is doing the best he can with the light and power he possesses, then that all human service is sacred, that there is no high nor low, that there are no saved, so long as men are in bonds to fear, superstition, and incompetence. That a smokestack is as sacred as a steeple, then he will agree with me that churches should pay their just quota of taxes. Good people no longer ask immunity from payment of bills because they are good. Businessmen are just as good as preachers. Business today is founded on the thought of reciprocity and mutuality. We help ourselves only as we help others, and all transactions in life should be cooperative and reciprocal. Granting for argument's sake that the church does do all the good claimed by my Christian brother, still, that is no reason for its exemption. So far as this court knows, all men who live in houses are good men, making the world of men better by their lives. But this is no reason why their residence should be exempt from taxation. So said a wise and learned judge in deciding the question of taxation of parsonage in Illinois. Here we get the growing concept of the world of thinking men and women, the concept of ethical monism. All is one, and the sacred is that which serves. Pay the price, and provided you pay the price, the thing you buy is worth the money. The churches will never do the good they are capable of doing until they throw off mendicancy. And the bigot is a robber who has lost his nerve, a bandit with a streak of yellow in his ego. The churches must take their stand, firmly and frankly, as human institutions, asking no exemption, demanding no immunity. Then they will be free. For her own good, the church must meet her responsibilities, and not shift her burden of taxes upon the people who do not believe her creed. If you believe in a peculiar doctrine, that is your affair, and you are the man to pay for its support. To say that I must pay for the support of your creed, or else be branded as a foe of society, is bad logic, worse ethics, and very indelicate, not to say discourteous. Only that is fair and beautiful which neither threatens, bribes, evades, demands, nor supplicates. Bigotry is abroad, but it has no longer the power to throttle science. The empty threat of future punishment and the offer of reward are nothing to us, since we perceive they are offered by men who haven't these things to give. The idea of war and conquest is held by many, but concerning it, we voice our thoughts and write our views. And the fact that we perceive and point out what we believe fallacies and brand the sins of idleness and extravagance is proof that light is breaking in the east. We want no splendor fashioned by slave, no labor driven by the lash, nor lured on through superstitious threat of punishment and offer of reward. We recognize that to own slaves is to be one. 40 years ago, no town in America was free from joint debates where the disputants would argue 6 nights and days together concerning vicarious salvation, baptism, regeneration, justification, and the condition of unbaptized infants after death. Debates of this kind set the entire populace by the ears, and at post office, tavern, grocery, family table, and even after the disputants are gone to bed, reasons nice and subtleties hair-splitting were passed back and forth until finally the party getting worsted fell back on maternal pedigrees, and epitaph took the place of logic. Page 102 we are. So that is all for today. If there is any viewer, I will now lectures to. It's still playing. 55 minute 38. Cool. Nice. Let's